For me, the biggest impact was that I could pray to Jesus. I didn't know I could pray to Jesus. I didn't know. Born in Venezuela, came here to Canada when I was 6 years old, and I'm mostly Canadian, let's say that. Grew up here with a Canadian background and history, but my parents were very much, they would instill the Venezuelan culture pretty deeply into our customs and our dances, our music, our food, and our festivity as well, yeah. I was actually part of, in 2002, when Pope John Paul II came to visit here for the World Youth Day, there was the big pilgrimage happening in the Downsview Park, and I was one of the performers for Pope John Paul II. I was dancing, and my role was to dance Latin dance. I remember I had snuck in a little camera. We weren't allowed to bring cameras backstage. And I had gone up on stage, and I started taking pictures of the Pope. One of the security guards, because at that time there was a risk that, well, he wasn't in his little bulletproof car. He was on stage. So there was a risk that I could be hiding a weapon within the camera. I'm not sure what. So one of the security guards ripped the camera out of my hand and pulled the batteries out. What happened then was that the Pope did notice that had happened, and he made the security guard return the camera back to me, even though I wasn't allowed to have the camera, which I thought in that time I was like, oh, that's pretty cool of you, Pope, to kind of do. But now looking back at it was nonsense, the whole perception of it all. I have newspaper clippings, I have things that kind of show what happened there, and you know how people are just so self-involved with the Pope. And then now I realize that the event had nothing to do with Jesus. It had nothing to do with, you know, God. It was about this grandeur, you know, the Beyonce of the Pope bringing him in, and you know, the parades and the celebration of the Pope. But where was the scripture? Where was the focus on God and Jesus? There was none. And you know, it was the headliners, you know, the "We love you, Pope John Paul." It should be "We love you, Jesus." And you know, the whole masquerade of it all, it was just celebrating this icon that was just so holy that he could not be touched. Every type of Catholic, which is an Orthodox or Roman Catholic, whether you're in Italy or from Venezuela, you're so involved in your traditions that really takes a definition on your religion, actually. It's a very gray water in the Latino culture as well. Like, what is culture? What is religion? What is belief? And nobody really has the answer to that, which is really interesting as well, right? You kind of just follow through, which is a reflection of the Catholic Church. You're just following through sometimes. I was not allowed to pray to Jesus. I had to pray to Mary or to saints along the way, because I was more or less told that Jesus was unavailable for me. So it was really, when I was a young child, we would always do the Sunday school churches, and then we were going into different parts of the Catholic religion, where we were either going into a confirmation or a communion. I had a lot of questions. And in that, I was always told by either the spiritual leader or the Catholic leader there that, you know, the Bible was too difficult for me to understand, that some things were just not worth questioning, but I just had to just believe that that was the truth. And being as a curious child, I wanted to dig deeper, because I really wanted to have a full understanding of what is it that I'm stepping into, what am I giving my life into. So that was one of the first telltale signs that something was not right in the Catholic Church. I hadn't actually discovered Christianity yet. I wasn't exposed to it, but I didn't believe in God. I did believe that there was someone greater than me that had a purpose for me and that was always guiding and protecting me. Through so many emotions of that, and I sinned, and you know, I have a lot of regrets, I guess you could say, as a child growing up, where I didn't have much guidance. I just kept on being the best person that I could be. And I was always kind, I was always generous, wherever I could be, but of course I had many flaws. Through that, of course, through some friends, I met my husband, and my husband, he's a born-again Christian. And within our first few years of marriage, it was quite, difficult at times, just overwhelming, with just the marriage and bringing a new child. And I noticed and I sensed that through him, there was a disconnect with him and his faith. And I felt as though he wanted to become closer and he wanted to go back to his church. And I didn't want to be the reason to stop that need that he was so wanted to quench so deeply. So I said, let's find a church, let's reconnect. I'll go there with you, I will support you. Well, I sat with him by his side as a supportive wife, and the pastor started speaking, and I was in awe. I'm like, this is church? This is completely different than what I've ever experienced in my life. The fact that the pastors and the leaders were actually speaking to you, they were pulling out parts of the scripture, they were describing it to you, they were breaking down the words, they were giving you true life scenarios about things that could happen and how to tackle that. And I was in shock. I had no idea that this was even possible. I turned to him like that, and I was just immediately a believer, I have to say. One of the other things was that as I got to know the church, and we would go there every Sunday, I always felt like it was so personal to me. For somehow, some way, the scripture was always like about what I was going through. For me, the biggest impact was that I could pray to Jesus. I didn't know I could pray to Jesus. I didn't know. I didn't know how to pray because my conception of praying was to cite specific prayers, and that's what somehow would bring me the answers, right? But I didn't realize that you can just pray from your heart and you can pray directly to Jesus, and that it didn't matter in what language or what process it was, that it was okay to do so. And that, I think that's the big turning point, is to show Catholics that Jesus is actually the one that's waiting for you to pray, and he's the one that's available at the door. Or just to simply for once be able to open the Bible, and the answers were right there the whole time. They were right there. And I couldn't believe it, because from the Catholic Church, you're kind of told that the Bible you cannot understand and you can try to read it, but nobody would ever tell you, open the Bible and see if you can seek your answer through there. And that was a major turning point for me to realize that I was finally on the right path. And it was ironically just because I wasn't necessarily searching for it, but I was supporting someone else that led me to it. I don't care what anybody else says. Finally, for once in my life, I realized that I could ask questions and my questions would be answered. It left me with a lot of security in my heart, because I know I have him to guide me, right? I don't have to overwhelm myself with, the steps of the process. I know that I can confide in him and he will lead me and take my hand along the way, which is it's a breath of fresh air in comparison to what was given to me through the Catholic Church. Your thoughts, your sorrows, and even the celebrations of your happiness, to us has been a clear example of him being with us and us having our hearts open to him. Because one thing I've learned so far the last few years is that the more I open my heart, the more he's willing to give. It's not a check-off list like a recipe or a weight loss diet. You have to really give everything about yourself along the way, to understand how to receive the word, how to be more involved day to day into the word. And through that motion, you will be connected naturally more to Jesus and to God. It's really an eye-opener now to be in this position where I know I have my women's group every Thursday, and I have my gatherings and my ladies and the Prayer Matters group at the schools. So it's nice to find that there is an extension to that daily word, and there's another community, and that's one thing that makes it so special, is that I believe that the church is there, but when you're in conversations with like other Christians, you can really develop it further, and you can dig deeper, and you can teach each other along the way, right? Which is really outstanding. It's so unique Whereas in the Catholic Church, the priest is the one that knows. The nuns are the ones that speak the word, and that's it, right? So maybe it has to do with how the lack of connection, I should say, in the Catholic churches. And there's a hierarchy there where you have to follow the leader and you're not allowed to ask questions, where in Christianity, it's about bringing everybody together to have a deeper understanding with the sole purpose of being closer to God. This is more than just a gathering. This isn't a religion. This is beyond a community. This is God's work. If you have an understanding of what it was like to experience the Catholic Church, especially from a young age, right? It was not a pleasant experience as a child to walk into a Catholic church. And it was made that way for a specific purpose because of, art history eras. It was about creating fear and depicting, dark art to others, so they would be more inclined to becoming and converting into the Roman Catholic Church. So I think that as a Catholic, or as a previous Catholic, as an ex-Catholic, my approach is more of being, hey, you know how we weren't allowed to ask questions? Hey, remember when you got baptized? Probably not. Hey, remember your first communion and you don't know what you said, or you just know that you had to read the rosaries? Yeah, that would start from there. Remember all of that? Yeah, did it make any sense to you? But most likely the answer is going to be, no, I don't even know why I did it, just my parents made me do it, or I was in a Catholic church and then everybody was doing it, or I was in a Catholic school and it was part of the process, right? So I think that coming in from that perspective is, once you start intriguing people with the questions of, do you remember why thing happened? And the answer most likely no, that's when you can grasp them and say, well, maybe there's more to that. There's another side, right? And when you start to bring in people closer to the gospel, as you say, and you start to show them, hey, this is the truth. It was okay to ask questions. I feel so comfortable in my skin now, in my home. I don't feel like I'm a lost child. I feel like I've been recruited again, you know what I mean? Which is, it's a beautiful feeling to actually have him as your father. And you can tell him anything and he already knows everything, but he will wait for you to come to him and he will embrace you within whatever scenario you have.